fiddled while Rome burned. Nero is known for being a cruel emperor, and there is the oft-cited anecdote that he fiddled while Rome burned. It is true that Nero cared more about his own musical and artistic endeavors than he did about the welfare of the Roman people, though if there was any truth to this story, Nero would have been playing the lyre rather than the fiddle. The story is often attributed to Roman historian Tacitus, though he never actually made this claim. According to Tacitus and many other sources, Nero was 35 miles away when the Great Fire of Rome broke out, and he quickly returned to help coordinate the relief efforts. However, Tacitus did insinuate that Nero may have orchestrated the fire, and that he used it for his own benefit by building his grand palace in the area that the fire had devastated. It's unclear what the origin of this apocryphal tale was, but the intent was clear: to portray Nero as a heartless and indifferent leader, more interested in himself than in the subjects he was supposed to be ruling over. It's certainly not an unfair characterization of the Roman emperor, even if this story didn't happen. Zeno's paradoxes of motion. The Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea is famous for his motion paradoxes. The argument states that which is in locomotion must arrive at the halfway stage before it arrives at its goal. That certainly makes sense and seems to be obviously true, but Zeno used this paradox to argue that all motion was impossible. Let's say you want to run a mile. Before you can finish the mile, you must run half a mile, but before you can finish the second half mile, you must run a quarter of a mile, then an eighth, a 16th, and so on. The remaining distance can be divided in half an infinite number of times, so the runner must complete an infinite number of tasks before arriving at the destination. Because a person cannot complete infinite tasks in a finite amount of time, Zeno argued that it was impossible to ever reach a destination. Using the same arguments on the front end of the journey, he also argued that it was impossible for a person to start moving as well, and thus all motion was an illusion. In his writings, the Greek philosopher Simplicus wrote that upon hearing Zeno's argument, the aptly named Diogenes the Cynic stood up and walked around disproving the idea that motion was impossible. Of course, this story almost certainly never happened. Zeno was only about 11 years old when Diogenes died, and Simplicus was writing about it several centuries later. But true or not, it was a fantastic mic drop moment for